What is good, familia? It is Thursday, October 27th, 2022. This is episode 82 of the Human Hope Podcast. And there's one singular question. Y'all ready for this? Come on, come on. Hey, hey, hey. Here we are. We back at it again. Welcome to episode 82 of the Human Hope Podcast with your host, Carlos Enrique Whitaker Guzman or Los for short, coming to you if you are watching on our YouTube channel, humanhopevideo.com. Y'all all go make sure that you go subscribe to the YouTube channel because it's very helpful for getting the content out there. But I'm just recording this on my phone. Like I'm looking at my phone, at least the video part. This is the iPhone 14 Pro Max though. So let's see what the selfie camera in 4K 24 frames per second looks like. If you're on YouTube, you can tell. All that to say, I'm in a hotel room and you can tell there is right behind me one of those little coffee like Keurig makers. And can I be honest with you? I'm in a hotel, the Embassy Suites here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And whenever I see one of those coffee makers, I think to myself, who in their right mind actually drinks out of those things? Like there is not any version of caffeine that I would ingest into my ecosystem of esophagus meets stomach meets blood flow meets brain meets caffeine helping me. There is nothing that could make me drink coffee out of those things. First of all, they're like just gross. Now look, there's a lot of you that have these things. And so I'm just going to learn you real quickly. Okay. This is not what the podcast is about, but I'm going to make it what the podcast is about. I want to let you guys know why Keurig is gross. Okay, can I just tell you? Okay, besides the science of the coffee. Okay, now I need to let you know that it's not the coffee itself coming out of that thing that's gross. It's just the fact that it's so hard to clean them that there's this grossness that continues to evolve inside of the Keurig. And I'm gonna give you this is so spur of the moment. This isn't part of the podcast. I mean, it could be because we're gonna be talking about having like major disagreements. And some of you guys right now are like, oh my gosh, Carlos is talking about my Keurig. And you know what? I can't unsubscribe, unfollow, cancel. Carlos is canceled. Carlos Enrique Whitaker Guzman. He is canceled because he's making fun of my Keurig machine. Listen, I can't afford the fancy grinder. I can't afford all that pour over nonsense. I don't have time for that. I need a Keurig. I need some quick. I need fat. Just stick the little cups in there. And listen, I'm not shaming you. I'm just trying to help you. And we're going to be talking about having disagreements today. Look, I even have notes. These are you can hear the notes. I have notes. Okay, ready? Here you go. 4 reasons why you should avoid Keurig coffee if you're a real coffee lover. I can't believe this is where we're at. How are we here? Literally 5 minutes ago, I did not know this is what we would be talking about on the podcast, but here we are. First of all, K-cups are wasteful, like insanely wasteful, okay? There's lots of environmental issues going on. Listen to this. In 2015, over 10 billion, yes, billion K-cups were produced in the United States. Okay, if you place them next to each other in a straight line, they would wrap around the entire earth 10.5 times. That's a lot of waste. Okay, now listen, guys, listen. There's more environmentally friendly ways to be drinking your coffee. Okay, it's not worth it. Okay, second thing, ready? Hold on. Oh yeah. Here's number 2. The instant gratification isn't really worth it. Why? Well, let me tell you. They rid you of the amazing opportunity to create something. You guys know, I think I've talked about this on the podcast. I know I've talked about it in real life, like on, not that the podcast is real life, but like on Instagram, I do a whole bit on why I have my coffee in mugs everywhere I go, because I don't want to take a to-go coffee because I don't get a chance to enjoy it, right? So like when you actually take the time to make your coffee, I'm a fan of grinding my own coffee. I do AeroPress. That's like the version I want. I believe that I get the richest flavor, the strongest flavor out of an AeroPress. But even pour over, if you can't, even if it was like grind your coffee and put it in a Mr. Coffee little coffee maker, at least you're using paper filters. You're taking a little bit more time. You're brewing an entire cup. Put it in a ceramic mug. Just enjoy it. Like, take your time. Don't let the K-cup rob you of the moment with your coffee in the morning. That's number 2. Okay. Number 3, it is way more expensive than you think it is. Okay. I mean, absolutely. Every cup of coffee only has 7 to 8 grams of coffee in them, in those little things. Now, let's ask ourselves, why is it worth noting this? Well, the average American consumes just under 225 milligrams of caffeine per day via coffee, 1 to 2 normal mugs. Since this is 7 to 8, it's only half of the coffee used to make a normal cup. So now what are you going to do? That's not only does it not taste good, not only is it bad for the environment, but it ain't even going to wake you up enough. And then last but not least, the grounds, it's just not good coffee. Like, bean quality aside, right? The grounds like are already stale. Okay. Have I helped you? No. Half of you guys are like, Carlos, I don't care. It gives me the boost I need. And you know what? I'm glad you don't care. I'm glad, because after today's conversation about how to disagree with family members politically, okay, we've talked about hot topic issues, but look, we're just talking politically today. I think that you should be able to say, you know what, Carlos, you have your little fancy hand grinding, pour over AeroPress nonsense, and I'm going to do my K-cup. And guess what? We can still be friends, and I'm not going to cancel you. You're not going to cancel me. Okay. Man, 7 minutes and 36 seconds. Look, sometimes this is a lot of times what like my podcast people are like, Carlos, can you stay on track? People want to get like you advertise this on how we get, I don't even know what I advertise or what I titled this podcast episode, but you know, you're like, this is about politics and family and friends. Quit talking about coffee. But no, this is my podcast. I can do what I want. And it's probably why we're going to peak and just stay at the number of you that are listening because you can handle my nonsense. But I do want to get into the depths of the conversation today because I believe that, you know, politics have become deeply personal. And none of us can deny that. Even those of us that are like, well, I'm in the middle. Well, just because you're in the middle doesn't mean it's not personal, right? Like just because you're like, well, I can see a little bit of this. I can see some good parts of that argument. Oh, I can also look over here on this side and see some good parts of that argument. That doesn't mean it's not personal. It has become deeply, deeply personal. And so today, what we're going to do is we're going to lean into why exactly it's been so hard for us in this season of politics and what we can do to maybe come out the other side. The midterms are right around the corner. We're seeing all the ads. We're seeing all the Facebook posts and Instagram posts, and people are telling you like it's so important. I mean, I had this Bible study leader that I follow on the internet. Man, I never heard him one time in his life talk about politics. And he got on his Instagram and was like, you need to vote and you need to pray about who you're voting for. And we need to make sure that we don't become the Israel of whatever. And I was like, whoa. Like even this dude, like this homeboy is like passionate. So I'm like, if that dude is like getting into it, then, and if he's putting that on his Instagram, I guarantee, I know some of his family. I guarantee you he's having some disagreements with some of his family. So yeah, I think we need to just lean into what it looks like and how it is that we can have these conversations and maintain the relationships. The goal here, quite simply, is just to maintain the relationship. That's all I want. I want to because if you don't maintain a relationship and you lose a relationship, how in the world are you ever going to do any, have any movement of the person that you vehemently disagree with? How are you ever going to move them anywhere or show them some semblance of your truth if you're not in relationship with them? What a boring world to just surround yourself with people that just look like you, think like you, vote like you, and talk like you. So I've got some points that I've made. I've got some points that some friends have made that I think are going to be very helpful for the next few minutes. If you guys would just give me your time and attention. You guys ready? I'm ready. So this is what we're going to do. Grab a pen. I think there's going to be some noteworthy things you can be taking. If not, if you're on your run, whatever, I'm glad. Make sure you put one foot in front of the other. Make sure the volume is okay on your headphones. If the air conditioning turns on in this hotel room while I'm speaking, please forgive me. The quality might not be as good, but I do believe that we can maintain relationships during this tumultuous political season. Okay. Let's just go. I think we have to admit something first. We need to all admit, everybody can say this together. Let's just say it together. Ready? I need you all to say it. Politics is personal. Say it. Politics is personal. I think, I even fell underneath the guise that I could convince people that, politics is just, it's something separate from the rest of how I live my life. And, it's okay to, vehemently disagree with somebody. And, it's just so easy to separate, right? It's of course, that person's opinion isn't who they are. I think there's a lot of things that I fall victim to saying, that quite simply just aren't based in reality. And I'll say that most of this, I think I've been really good the last 3 or 4 years, but it was really 2016 that I was in that season where I was like, no, guys, we can just you can really you should be able to separate your feelings from your vote. Nah, it's personal. It should be personal. Shouldn't we actually care about all of these things? It should be personal because every issue is a person. So if every issue is a person, then it becomes personal. And if you have an opinion on an issue and it's not personal, that means you probably don't have a relationship with a person that is affected by the issue. So you probably need to take take a look at your friendships and start some new ones. Okay, but let's get back to really, I want us to understand and be okay with politics being personal. It should be. I'm so passionate about so many issues that it's very personal to me. It's personal. But all of those issues are persons. That's why we say it all the time. Say it together. We don't stand on, you said it out loud. Congratulations, round of applause. You've got it. We've got it drilled in your head. We don't stand on issues. We walk with, that's right, walk with people. I learned that from my friend Mike. And it's been my guiding light. We don't stand on issues, we walk with people, but that doesn't mean that the issues aren't important. They are. And it's deeply, deeply personal, right? So let's not pretend. Let's not pretend. Let's not just hang out in peaceful, easy feeling land and pretend these issues don't have deeply personal impacts on our souls. They should. They should. Now, should they completely take over control of every facet of who you are? No. Just because an issue is personal to you doesn't mean that it's supposed to affect everything about you. And you can tell those people, right? I see those people on the left and I see them on the right. I got friends that are living in crazy town on both sides of the aisle. And like everything, oh my gosh, like you can't even have a conversation about nothing without them turning it into something political, because it's like the air they breathe. This is the air I breathe. It's called being a liberal. This is the air I breathe. Oh, I'm an elephant conservative. Yeah, I mean, like they just, everything they breathe is that. And like, y'all got a problem, okay? If everything that you talk about and you listen to and it's all political, then that's where you need to go to BetterHelp.com and you need to get somebody to help you get off of that train, because that train is not healthy. There's a lot more things in life than politics. I promise you, there is. And I'm going to tell you guys a story in a minute about how when you figure that out, how it's going to help you even in this thing. So let's not pretend politics don't have a serious impact on our souls. I mean, I know for me, you know, especially with social media, sometimes like friends' political opinions seriously make me question whether or not I can continue to be friends with them. Like knowing what they believe, right? I had I had a friend of mine who was a member of a church somewhere in America, and they were they're a black couple, and they were members of an all-white church. And when all of the Black Lives Matter, all of those things started popping, right? Like their eyes were open to, holy cow, oh my gosh, we are in a church filled with maybe, what's the nicest way we could say this? Like prejudiced people, but then there may be some like straight up racist people. And suddenly like they had to bounce, they had to get out of there, because it wasn't even like a healthy space they could even begin conversations in. So they had to like leave. So like there's going to be like drastic choices that some of us have to make, but I would say that most of us aren't there. Most of us can continue in the relationships around us by trying to adjust a few things. That doesn't mean that there's going to be some of us that need to get out. We're going to get to that in just a second. But you know, like I know for me, sometimes I just question, can I remain friends with this person? But if you're in the middle of 4,000 people that are thinking the same way and you think another way, I would just go ahead and tell you right now, unless you have been called by God himself to remain there, you need to get out. Okay. That was free. Okay. So let's go straight to like parents. Okay. Let's get to a lot of us. I have a lot of conversations with people that, you know, have grown up very either, raised by parents that are very liberal, and they have gotten more, the children have gotten more conservative through the years, or they've grown up with parents that are very conservative and the children have grown more liberal through the years. Literally, but like in my own family, I have both. I see this, and it's really hard, especially because as politics have gotten more and more personal, we are more and more wounded because we're seeing like parents, the divide between us and our parents grow, and it's personal because that's mommy and daddy, right? Like I can't fathom. Now I'm lucky. My parents and I see pretty closely, eye to eye politically. But I know some of you aren't in that space, and I need to let you know that I know it's hard. Don't let anybody tell you, oh, you know what? Just hang out with them. It's going to be fine. Just let it blow over. No, like that's not what we need to be doing. But you know, it's hard when you care passionately about the direction that the country's going, but you have parents with opposing views. It's hard. We see our parents, and we've seen our parents the whole time we've been growing up is like measured and wise, and we love them and we respect them. But suddenly that respect is starting to wane a little bit, right? You're just like, oh, And even, as people get older, sometimes they get a little bit more stubborn, and it begins to wane. And there is an actual mourning that happens. And I need to let you know that it's okay to feel that. It's okay to feel that mourning. The first thing that we got to do when relationships begin to fracture because of politics isn't, I don't believe it's to rush to salvage the relationship. I believe that's the second thing we need to do. The first thing I think you need to do is to be okay with mourning the passing of what was. I need to let you know that, like, your relationship with anybody, I mean, just take a look at your relationship with anybody you've had a relationship with is going to change throughout the years. And just because your parents are your parents doesn't mean that's going to change. Doesn't mean that they're just going to be the ones that maintain. No. Because you've never been the age you've been. They've never been the age they are. And so this is brand new. Literally every year, it's a brand new relationship with your parents. Just as with your own kids. Okay, this isn't a parenting talk, but I've got 3 kids. All 3 of my kids had different parents. Isn't that weird to say? But it's true. They did. They all had different parents. When Sayana was 3 years old, she had different parents than when Sohaila was 3 years old, because I was 2 years older. When Losai was 3 years old, he had different parents than Sayana had, because I was even 2 years older than that. And then Losai was in a different phase of life, and he was a boy. Everyone has different relationships in every different season. So it's okay to mourn what was, but maybe look forward to what can be. Let me say that again. It's okay to mourn what was, but maybe look forward to what can be. Okay. Now, to get like practical, like, let's put some handlebars on this thing. I think when we're faced with like hard conversations, right? Like, say some of you have relationships with your parents, and all they want to do is, talk about, politics, right? So say you're like, let's take both examples. Say you are talking about the weather. You're like, man, it sure is. The summer just lasted a little bit longer this year than normal. And you're just making a comment about summer. And suddenly your parents are like, oh, you must be listening to Bernie Sanders again. Oh my gosh, I can't. And you're like, no, I was just talking about summer. Like, they take everything and they spin it to be political. And you're just like, can we talk about the weather without it being about Bernie Sanders? Right? Or like, if you're like, man, like the gas prices, whew, like they're a mess. Oh, you think those are that's Biden's fault? Is that what you think? So wait, no, can I be mad about the gas without blaming anybody? Right? So when our parents get to that stage, and I believe a lot of parents, I know that a lot of your parents are there. We have to, number one, get to the root, because the reason why they feel that way is there is a reason why. And so we have to be good listeners. We have to be good listeners. If you want to salvage the relationship with your parents or with anyone, but we're talking about parents right now, that you're in a relationship with, and they're always talking about politics, and you're like, I can't deal with it anymore. What I would say to you is to actually have like one, you don't have to have more than one very intentional conversation where you get to be the listener. You get to be a good listener, and you get to find out, what is this really about? Because every candidate out there, right, they're peddling to people, and people go to them for different reasons. Everybody has a different worldview. Everyone's everyone's life is different and is looking things from different points of view. And to get to that answer, like, what's this really about? There is always going to be something below their opinion on a certain issue or a certain politician. If they just say, oh, that politician is blank and they believe this, what's it really about? And I would challenge you to have an hour-long conversation where you do not, in any way, shape, or form, interject to give them your opinion. You do not interject to give them your opinion. You do not tell them that you believe this or that they should believe that. No, you are just listening. Find the shift. Find the shift and see if maybe it's based in a grievance or a loss. A lot of times the shift happens in people's political tendencies and leanings through a grievance or a loss. A lot of times that's what happens. And so is it based in one of those two things, right? So listen without replying. It's going to be impossible. I know you're thinking, Carlos, I can't do it. No, just ask them questions. Watch, practice this with me. Ready? Oh, okay. Oh, I get it. Oh, I understand you. Try it. Ready? Let's all say it together. I know. Doesn't mean that you're agreeing. It means that you're listening. And then you don't have to agree. Just be like, oh, I understand you now. Oh, that makes sense to what you believe. I understand why you believe that now, right? That's what you're trying to get to, is you're trying to get to understanding why. Just because you understand why doesn't mean you're going to agree with it. But if you give them an hour, just give them an hour to talk to you without you talking back. Listen to understand, not to reply. I think at that point, you're going to get somewhere. Now, what if you've listened and there's still no movement? What if you listen and you're like, yo, I tried. I listened to understand. And now I know, Carlos, that it is a loss. It's a loss that has moved them farther to the left or farther to the right. And now what do I do? Well, now you get to make a decision. And the first thing I tell you is, if you've spent that time truly listening to them, they are going to not feel the need to display and voice their opinion constantly. Because can I tell you why they're displaying and they're voicing their opinion to you constantly? It's because they don't believe that you have heard them. And once you have heard them, okay, I don't have data here. This is only from my own personal application. Once people know that you have heard them, or as in my next book that's coming out January 26th, How to Human, you have seen them, they're not blasting at you anymore. And suddenly you can say, gosh, man, the gas prices, they suck. And they may go, yeah, they suck. Instead of like, oh my God, what do you hate, Biden? Or man, gosh, it sure is a lot hotter this summer. Oh yeah. What do you think? Like global warming? What are you, a Bernie guy? Right? No, they're just trying to get you to hear them. But once you hear them on purpose, a lot of times that's going to just dissipate and lower the level of extremism in how they respond to you. But what if they don't? What if they continue? What if they're just like constantly, you're just like, oh my gosh, can we not talk about, I mean, I have a friend that everything, it just turns political. Well, at that point, you have to make a decision. And I believe at that point, it's okay to shut it down. Say, shut it down. Say it again, shut it down. Yeah, shut it down. Shut it down. You know, as well as I do, that there is no amount of conversation you have or arguments you have with your parents or your loved ones about politics that is going to change their minds. That's not really going to happen. Now, some of you guys may be like, no, someone had a conversation with me, it changed my mind. Yeah, okay, but most of the time, they're thinking about the next thing that they want to say. And you're thinking about the next thing that you want to say. So I just go and tell you, I'm going to give some of you the freedom to shut it down. Sometimes silence is the most loving solution you can have. Sometimes it's okay to just stop being in a relationship, maybe for the season. Maybe for this season, you're like, you know what? I'll talk to you again in 3 weeks because none of this is very helpful. And just let it go. Is that avoiding? Well, sure. But sometimes we have to do that for our own mental health. Sometimes we have to do that to save the relationship. Now, are some relationships just not even going to be able to be saved with that? Absolutely. But I'll tell you, sometimes silence is the most loving solution. And then what I would say to do is take a look, and I'm still using parents as an example, but this can really go to anybody. Take a look at some of the common values that you've shared. And if you say there's none, you need to do some homework because there are some, okay? There are common values that you share. If somebody was in a burning down building next to both you and your parents or whoever your loved one is, hopefully you would both have a common value that you need to sprint towards that building and rescue the person. There's a common value. You can find common values. So move towards them, right? Connect over shared values, because I promise you, there are still some. There are, but there may not be near as many as there used to be. And it's okay to mourn those. It is. I mean, is it possible? Like, is it actually possible to coexist with people that you see what they post online? And do we have to pretend? Like, is that the ticket? Are you like, okay, Carlos, I'm going to pretend. Do we have to pretend that the comments don't exist? Well, I mean, what do you do if you have grown to love these friends and you've come to find out that they're fill in the blank, whatever it may be? You know what? I'm going to wait to tell you this story. No, I'm going to tell you now. So I have a friend of mine, very close friend, who we were really different. And he's one of my closest friends when it comes to politics. And I noticed that actually this I go into really deep detail in my next book on this story, but I'm going to give you just the cliff notes. I'd noticed that he had like stopped following me on all the social media things. And I remember initially being like offended, but then my wife being like, well, why would he follow you? Because you're talking about all the stuff that he doesn't agree with. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe that's true. But then like, I remember Heather's like, hey, they're coming over for dinner. And I hadn't talked to him in like 3 months. And I was like, oh man, I really don't want this to happen. It's going to be awkward. And when he walked in, and we kind of gave each other that superficial hug, and then we started talking about dumb stuff. But before I knew it, I just looked at him and I was like, hey man, like, I miss you. And I put into practice these 3 steps that my friend Kristen Ivy has taught me, that I think, especially when it comes to this kind of stuff, relationships with friends, people that aren't like blood, I put in these 3 steps into practice, and I think it really, really helped our relationship in this moment. Because what happened was I said, hey, so like, what's going on, man? Like, we're just not, is it as simple as I think it is? And all it took was that one question, asking him. And when I asked him a question, he felt free to tell me. And suddenly he's like, hey man, like, I just feel like everything you're talking about is race these days. Like, and you've never talked about race before. And suddenly you're just like this dude that's just like talking about race all the time. And it just drives me crazy. It's not you. It's not you. And what I could have done in the moment was defend myself, right? Well, I immediately just defend. But that's not what we're trying to do here. Step 1 is ask. And when you ask, you better be ready for a reply. Step 2 is seek. When they give you an answer, you need to seek a little deeper, grab the answer and go a little deeper into what they mean. Okay? Ask, seek, and then last but not least, knock. When I say knock, what I mean? Well, why would you knock if you already know? Because once you seek and get deeper, you're going to knock into the corners of their hearts, the parts of their heart that maybe you didn't even know was there. Ask, seek, knock. Ask, seek, knock. Ask, seek, knock. You know what we do instead? We know, we assume, and we defend. Oh, no, I know. Oh, yeah, well, I'm going to assume this about you. And then I'm going to defend myself. No, that's not how we get anywhere. So what I did with, I almost said his name. Well, it's in my book, but what I did with my buddy is I asked. And then once he said that, I could have been like, bro, what you mean? Like, let me tell you why all I talk about is race, because as a black man in America in 22. But instead, I seeked. And I said, what do you mean when you say that that's not me? It's like I just went farther. And he goes, well, like you've never talked about this to me before. And suddenly this is all you talk about. And you know what? When he said that, I realized, guess what? He was right. As his friend, I had done a disservice to our relationship by never talking about the pain that I felt as a Black man in America and things that I had to deal with as a Black man in America. So suddenly this was all new to him, and he was right. This wasn't me. This wasn't the me that he knew. But what I had to do was gently lead him into the me, which was knocking on his heart. So instead of defending myself, I knocked and I said, hey, can I tell you a couple stories? Can I tell you what I've had to deal with as a Black man in the South? Can I give you something? And as I begin to share with him very lovingly, his head began to turn, his eyes began to get bigger, his eyes began to well up, and he began to realize that it's not that it's not me. It's just that I've never shared this. So you know what I actually did? I apologized. Me, the Black man in 2020, apologized to my white friend that didn't think that I needed to be talking about this. You may be thinking to yourself, Carlos, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Look at you. You are just apologizing for no reason. No, I was asking, I was seeking, I was knocking in order to save a relationship. And guess what? There were tears and hugs had. And I'm closer to him than I have been in a long time. Do we still disagree? Does he still say things that drive me crazy? Absolutely. Do I still say things that drive him crazy? Absolutely. But we're there for each other because it's possible. Ask, seek, knock. Don't know, assume, and defend. Okay, man, I feel like I feel like that could be that could be like the ticket. Like if you guys just leave with that, with ask, seek, and knock, as opposed to, what are the words again? Know, assume, and defend. Like that right there could allow you to not let somebody's small view of humanity get in the way of your large view of humanity, right? Maybe that could be it. Elevate your human over your opinion. Remember, it's not about convincing someone else to see your truth. It's not. It's about you, having a good relationship with you. You got to have a good relationship with you before you can have a good relationship with somebody else. If you don't have a good relationship and a healthy relationship with you, I promise you, you're never going to be able to have a healthy relationship with somebody else that you love, but vehemently disagree with. So you got to work on that yourself. Make sure that you're in therapy to fix that. Okay. But just remember that we're only catching a glimpse, especially online. You're only catching a glimpse, a sliver of people's thoughts. But by the time, I would say that the people on Facebook, my friends from high school on Facebook, that most of the people in my high school on Facebook pretty much disagree with everything I say. They let me know. But when they have time to get on their phones with their thumbs and type, that's only like a sliver of who they are. The fullness of their humanity, like they're probably, parenting their kids, going to meetings, waiting in traffic, picking up groceries, smiling at the, cashier on the way out, traveling. Like they're doing all these things that are the full version of who they are as a human, as opposed to the one sentence that we see a day. We need to look at someone's entire story. Nobody wants to be judged by a paragraph. And a lot of times we're just looking at a paragraph of somebody's life and making a judgment about them, as opposed to looking at their entire story, at the entire book of who they are. And I just want to challenge all of you to do this, to ask, to seek, and to knock, to ask, to seek, and to knock, and know that it's okay if you need to place boundaries for a season. And some of you, maybe forever, but I would say most of you, it would only be for a season. And even more of you maybe don't even need to take a break. Like you can do this. You can step into this. You can do it, guys. I believe you actually can. All right. So let's have a little just recap here. Okay. Politics is personal. We said it together. Let's not pretend that they don't impact our well-being. But it's hard. It's hard out in these streets when you got parents and family members that vehemently disagree with you. So what do? We got to find out what it's really about. So we got to listen to understand. Got to be a good listener. Have that hour-long conversation where you don't reply. You just reply with, oh yeah, oh, I understand now, right? I get it. Yeah, because you can understand without agreeing. Okay. Now, remember, after that, they're going to feel seen. But what if it's still bad? Well, then shut it down. Shut it down. Sometimes the most loving reply and response we can have is silence. So in that, continue to connect over shared values because there are still shared values. I promise you, I don't care what you say, there really are. But you can mourn the loss of what used to be. And then, y'all, let's say it over and over again. We're going to say it to the beat of Dr. Delight. Ask, seek, knock. Ask, seek, knock. Ask, seek, knock. Don't know, assume, and defend. Don't know, assume, and defend. No, we're going to ask, seek, knock. Come on. We're going to ask, seek, knock. Yeah, we're going to ask, seek, knock. That's what we're going to do. Hang on. Little breakdown here. Little breakdown. Okay, listen. I love you guys. See you next week. And don't forget, subscribing really helps. So whatever app you're listening to right now, if you could please hit follow or subscribe, it really helps get the podcast out in front of listeners that maybe would have never heard it before. God, listen, go with Guzman and Chivoka saying I will see you next week on another episode of the Human Hope Podcast.